Edifice Live, very special,
chose to represent an anti-Semitic terrorist group,
important, incredible Prime Minister's Christmas.
Anti-Semitism run rife in this Labour
Houses of Parliament,
Those are his actions,
UK 24.
those are his values, and that's how he should be judged.
Time's down there. Date today is the
Mr. Speaker, the problem is he's describing a Labour Party
13th
that no
of
longer exists.
March 2024. Wednesday afternoon.
Banking their upcoming general election.
Just stop.
They can shout all they like. 2 weeks ago, he marched them out like fools to defend Islamophobia. And now the member for Ashfield is warming up the opposition benches for. And yesterday he sent them out to play down racism and misogyny until he was forced to change course. He won't hand the money back.
There he is, guys.
On how convenient it is that a man handed huge NHS contracts by his government is now his party's biggest donor. You have to wonder what the point is of a Prime Minister who can't lead and a party that can't govern.
Aye.
And Mr. Speaker, national insurance contributions fund state pensions and the NHS. So is the Prime Minister's latest unfunded £46 billion project national insurance going to be paid for by cuts to state pensions or cuts to the NHS?
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad he's brought up the budget. It's about time that he spoke about his plans, because what have we heard, Mr. Speaker, from the Shadow Chief Secretary? The Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury confirmed.
I'm listening.
The Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury has confirmed that the Labour Party will not be sticking to the Conservative government spending plans. So we now have a litany of unfunded promises on the NHS, on mental health, on dentistry, on breakfast clubs, and that doesn't even include the £28 billion 2030 eco-pledge that he's still committed to. But what we all know is that we're cutting taxes. Labour's unfunded promises higher taxes for working Britain.
No, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party will not be sticking to his completely unfunded £46 billion promise. But he thinks he can trick people into believing that, but simply taking the Tory magic money tree will bring it into existence. Let's be clear, 80% of national insurance is spent on social security and pensions, 20% is spent on the NHS. So he's either cutting pensions for the NHS, or he will have to raise other taxes or borrowing. Which is it, Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I know it's not his strong point, but if he actually listened to the Chancellor last week, what he would have seen is NHS spending is going up, Mr. Speaker. It's going up. It's a plan that's backed by the NHS CEO, who said we're giving her what she needs, and at the same time, we're responsibly cutting taxes for millions of people in work. An average benefiting from a £900 tax cut, Mr. Speaker, but what I'm hearing from him is he's against our plans to cut national insurance.
The highest tax burden since the Second World War. I did listen to the Chancellor, £46 billion of unfunded commitment. They tried under the last administration and everybody else is paying the price. But 2 weeks ago, the Minister promised to crack down on those spreading hate. Today he shrunk at the first challenge. Last week he promised fantasy tax cuts. Now he's pretending it can all be paid for no impact on pensions or NHS. All we need now, Mr. Speaker, is an especially hardy lettuce, and it could be 2022 all over again. Is it any wonder that he's too scared to call an election? The public can see that the only way to protect their country, their pension and their NHS from the madness of this Tory party is by voting Labour.
Aye.
Mr. Speaker, again,
No, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about pensions. Pensions are going up. It's this government's protected triple law for the last 10 years. He talked about supporting working people. It's this government that's cutting taxes for everything single in word, Mr. Speaker. It's this government that's investing in the NHS, but all we have from him is a £28 billion unfunded promise. Mr. Speaker, I had a look at it. It's here. It's all here. Making Britain a clean energy superpower. He's still stuck to it, Mr. Speaker. And if you look through it carefully, there's billions in spending he's already committed to Scotland, billions sales. There's actually money for North London too, I noticed. But the problem is, none of it is funded. So why doesn't he come clean and tell him on his plans, Britain people's taxes are going up, Mr. Speaker?
They're going up with you in charge anyway, you liar. Don't lie, don't pass on to the Labour Party.
UK and Europe have been inspired by the brilliance of Six Nations rugby.
55 pence 2 years in a row, trade fairs.
Like Gloucester Rugby, which were funded during the pandemic through loans authorised by the Prime Minister as then Chancellor, have always been grateful for being kept solvent. But the Prime Minister will also know that the finances of some of these clubs are fragile and that the current loan repayment schemes could be cryptic. So will my right honourable friend ask the Sports Minister and the Treasury to try and find a solution through this, so that taxpayer interests are protected and all of us can go on being inspired by top-class rugby for years to come.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right that we stepped in with £150 million.
Oh yeah, Tory destruction here, guys. Very dirty, isn't it?
During the pandemic.
Very dirty.
I am told that DCMS is.
This is what they did. This is exactly the same with Boris Johnson was in charge, guys. Deja vu. Same old story, never changes.
And any ones that do have concerns should contact.
Do you believe Labour's right about the Tories? Who knows? It looks like it might well be true. Deja vu.
Union, but also his local Gloucester Rugby.
We come to the leader of the SNP, Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to begin by wishing Ramadan Mubarak to Muslims across these aisles. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party have accepted a £10 million donation from an individual who has said that one of our parliamentary colleagues in this chamber should be shot. Why is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom putting money before morals?
Mr. Speaker, as I said, the comments were wrong. The gentleman in question has apologised for them, and that remorse should be accepted.
Stephen Flynn, this is complete rubbish. The gentleman in question apologised for being rude. He wasn't rude, he was racist, he was odious, and he was downright bloody dangerous. Now, number 10 said, we've seen an unacceptable rise in extremist activity which is seeking to divide our society and hijack our democratic institutions. Isn't it extremism that we should all be worried about? The views of those Tory donors that we've read about this week.
Prime Minister. No, Mr. Speaker, there has actually been a rise in extremist activity that is seeking to hijack our democratic institutions. It's important that we have the tools to tackle this threat. That's what the extremism strategy will do, and I would urge him to wait for the Community Secretary to release details.
Ooh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sub-postmasters across the country will welcome the government's announcement today on the introduction of legislation to overturn the convictions of those who were wrongly convicted. But can my right honourable friend reassure this House that legislation will be passed as quickly as possible, and we will support all sub-postmasters right across our United Kingdom.
Prime Minister.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, I want to pay tribute to all postmasters who have campaigned tirelessly for justice, including those who tragically won't see justice.
Well, your predecessor David Cameron didn't care. So why are you acting now? It's because it's an election year, isn't it?
And across this House, we owe it to them to progress this legislation as soon as possible.
Too late. The apologises, mate. Too late. Too late. Too little.
We're continuing to work with our counterparts in Scotland and Northern Ireland as they develop their plans. But regardless of where and how convictions are quashed, redress will be paid to victims.
2015, 2016, they knew about it.
The future of children's cancer services.
And David.
Give a chance, David, to be the leader.
of Children's Cancer Services in my constituency across South West London, across Surrey, Sussex and beyond will be decided by NHS England tomorrow. The existing service is world leading and has saved the lives of countless children. Many of us who've engaged with the consultation process feel that a wrong decision is about to be made, ignoring risk to children's cancer care by moving them to the Evelina. If the Evelina is chosen tomorrow, will the Prime Minister personally intervene and delay any final decision until he's met with myself and concerned MPs across the House so he can prevent these risks to our children's cancer services?
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman knows, decisions about clinical provision are rightly made by clinicians in local areas across the country. More generally, we're investing in more oncologists, radiologists and community diagnostic centres, which are contributing to cancer treatment being at record levels, but I will of course ensure that he and colleagues get a meeting with the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Radical Islamists pose a serious threat to our nation's security, and I agree with my right honourable friend that we must urgently address this. But reports that the government wishes to broaden the definition of extremism are concerning because in separating the definition of extremism from actual violence and harm, we may criminalise people with a wide range of legitimate views and have a chilling effect on free speech. So can my right honourable friend reassure me that instead of trying to police people's thought and speech, as those opposite clearly wish to do, the government will instead target the specific groups that foster terrorism and those who fund them?
Prime Minister, my honourable friend makes a good point, and that's why the strategy that I would urge her for will, I think, be one that she can support, because it's our duty to make sure the government has the tools to tackle the she rightly identifies and highlights, and this is absolutely not about silencing those with private and peaceful beliefs, nor will it impact
I see, my friend.
which we on this side of the house.
Please subscribe to my channel on Silent Gems and my friend Sparky Jimbo every Friday. Listen to my friend Sparky Jimbo every Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. ITF Friday Sorry, it was radio station show. Listen to my friend Jonathan Larsha every Sunday at 9 a.m. to 12 live on the Woking radio station show every Sunday. And listen to my friend Shane for the Years every Friday with Cindy Lou at 10 a.m. to 12 live on the Surrey Hills radio station every Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please subscribe to on Silent Gems. Bye.